Welcome to the Bleep Bulimia podcast with guest Dr. Betsy speaking on Meno and andropause. Hello everyone, I am Lorianne. I am the host of Bleep Bulimia, and I have today with me Dr. Betsy. She's a triple board certified physician specializing in menopause and andropause. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Lorianne, for having me. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Yes, and this should be very, very interesting because we were talking before the show that menopause, we all know about menopause, and this is bleep midlife bulimia, so it works with it. But then the andropause, which most of my friends and I talk about as male menopause, but you've got a word for it, a terminology for it, which is great. So obviously my thing is tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get into this?
Yeah, I don't think anybody goes to medical school necessarily wanting to be a gynecologist, like looking at like down there parts all day long. But I found myself as I was going through my medical rotations really being drawn to kind of like the surgical specialties. So I actually started off in general surgery and got halfway through it and realized that I didn't really like general surgeons are great. They're like body mechanics. If you have an appendix that bursts, it's perfect. You need them to come in, get the job done. But they're not really those feely, touchy, like warm type of people. So I would be doing my rotations and I'd be like talking to people like, so how do you feel now that your appendix is out? Like, how do you feel now that your gallbladder is out? And I was missing that relationship with the patients. So I ended up switching into obstetrics and gynecology, and then fast forward, I ended up finding urogynecology, which I remember at the time, and I told my mom I was going to do this extra training in urogynecology, and she's like, "What is that? Is it like fancy gynecology, like European gynecology?" And I'm like, "Well, it's a combination of urology and gynecology. So we deal with the bladder and the pelvic health all together. So it's advanced training in that." And so I actually became the first certified female urogynecologist in the United States. And I did that for years, which entailed doing pelvic reconstructive surgery. I am retired from that, and that sounds really nice. However, I'm retired because I unfortunately had a car accident, and so I no longer have the ability to perform major surgeries because I just can't be in the positions that need to be done, like standing and bending over for hours on end. So I kind of went through this period of time where I was like, well, everybody was telling me to be retired and just enjoy life and kind of sit back on disability. And I'm like, you know what? I have too much knowledge in my head to let it go to waste. And I have too much to give back to the world. And I don't want to go out without like having some sort of legacy. So I wasn't actually entirely sure what I was going to do, even though I was dealing with a lot of menopausal women at the time that I was seeing patients. But it wasn't until I really got into my speaking career. So I started professionally speaking. And then one day somebody asked me a menopause question on stage. And I don't know why I said it, but I blurted out that I was opening a menopause clinic. And then I went, oh boy, why did I just say that? But luckily, it was received very well, and so that's what I did. And then in taking care of my female patients, when it came to like hormones and just overall wellness and energy and confidence and sexual health, many of the women were like, "Hey, my husbands or my partners or my boyfriends are having problems too. Could you see them?" So, and men unfortunately go through the same changes, a little kind of different, but they're having their hormones are also dropping, starting usually in the age of 40. So they go through their own kind of transition, and they call it andropause. So that's why I started the International Pause Institute, so helping everybody like 40s forward. So,
I
yeah.
love it. I love it. Actually, it's funny when we talk about that too. So, I was telling you, midlife bulimia, obviously, a lot of the women who are, or men struggling with bulimia, a lot of them started in their teens, but then now they've reached into their 40s, 50s, and 60s, still struggling with it. Some unusual, but some actually start also later on in their 30s and 40s. But the whole thing is that when I put this together, my big thing was, you go through puberty, and that's a big thing. And then you go through menopause, andropause. That's a big thing too, because again, like, you go to this period where you're, and then all of a sudden you're going through a different one. And menopause is I don't know. I mean, for some of you who sit there, is it better or worse than puberty? Like, it's like, you know, it's not easy, but then you're also giving up something, women in particular, that you really are tired of after, how many years? Like, no more period. Thank you very much. Like, but then you got the hot
Yeah.
flashes, and then you've got the body change, right? And that's a big thing.
Yes.
Puberty is body change, and then also menopause, and I'm sure andropause too, the body change. And I think that where, the eating disorders can actually be more difficult, particularly if you carried it that long, to let it go, because you're going, oh my God, now this is happening, right?
Yeah,
So,
because when you're younger, when you have all your hormones, it's and especially with the body changes, if someone is concerned about like body composition and trying to be like a smaller size or lose weight, it's so much easier. So those techniques that people are doing in their teens tend to work better. Then all of a sudden you're doing that now in midlife and it's not working.
nope.
And I've had patients where they've just completely stopped eating and they just don't lose weight. And even myself has kind of struggled with my body image and weight my whole entire life, and have gone through periods where I binge and then I restrict. And so when I was younger, you could drop, and get back into your skinny jeans. But like now in midlife, you do that and nothing happens. And one of the things that we're battling, not only the hormones are dropping, mainly testosterone in both men and women is the bigger problem, because testosterone is going to be responsible for muscle. And what happens is when starting in our 30s, we start losing about 8% of our muscle for every decade that we live. And
Wow.
muscle is more metabolically active than any of our other tissue. So muscle is going to burn calories quicker than anything else. So now we're losing it because we're losing our testosterone. And then if you add on top of it, if there's any kind of nutrient restriction, or especially with proteins, if we're not ingesting enough proteins, then we also don't have anything to feed those muscles. So now you just keep losing muscle, and then you're just gaining weight and gaining fat in response to it, because your metabolism is just kind of getting all messed up. So I think especially for people who have struggled with any eating disorder, what is really, really hard to understand during this time period is actually the more you eat, the better condition your body's going to be in. Because if you don't eat enough, or if you're eating and purging and you're not getting that calorie, you're not hitting a certain calorie level, your body is gonna not know the difference between like you're choosing to do that versus like you're in starvation. Like it doesn't know. It thinks like maybe there's like a gross famine across the earth. And so your body's like, okay, I'm sensing I'm not getting enough nutrients, so I'm going to hold on to everything I can. And so it will hold on to weight in return, of that. So yeah, so
Survival
it's
mode,
very,
right?
yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. Anytime the body is stressed, and that doesn't even have to be like what we do to ourselves when it comes to, like eating disorders. It could be like mental stress. It could be emotional stress. It could be not getting enough sleep. It could be not getting enough water. It could be eating inflammatory foods like processed foods or high sugary foods as opposed to whole foods. So there's so many different stressors, but anything that the body perceives as a stress, it goes into that stress survival mode, and it goes into I'm going to hold on to everything because I don't know what's happening next. So yeah, so the only way to really get the body, composition that people are looking for is to kind of be in that nice relaxed state so that the body can go into like healing and digestion and in fact, that relaxed state is called the parasympathetic nervous state. It's not only responsible for digestion and healing, but it's also responsible for sex drive. So sex drive also gets affected when there's a stressor. So
Interesting. It's actually interesting as well. So one of the things a lot of people, particularly as they get older, they're afraid if they have been struggling with bulimia and like any eating disorder, that's like anorexia related type of thing. They're afraid to let it go because they're afraid they're going to gain weight.
yeah, oh, I can understand that.
Strange thing is, when I quit, I lost 15 pounds. Because
Yeah.
what you were saying is it wasn't working anymore, and the body, when I was binging, was somehow keeping a lot more in than it used to,
Yeah.
or something. I don't know, but I just kept gaining weight in the last years of my bulimia, and and then I thought, well, I don't feel good about myself. And my sister was wonderful. Like she was, I always mention this. She came to me and I was staying with her because I just lost my business and everything. And she was nice enough to bring me in. And she goes, I can hear you. I know you're still doing it. She goes, but I love you and I'm here for you anytime. Open. Next day I quit. I literally looked at myself. I said, there's nothing I have to hold on to. I don't own a business anymore. There's nothing to stress me out. There's nothing like except for, getting my feet back on the ground. But, I had gotten rid of all my stressors. And so I thought, what are you doing this for? And then
Yeah.
it just all fell into place. I'm very lucky. Not everybody can go through that. But it's not that easy. You go through 6 months of dealing with your emotions, and I'm sure midlife emotions are worse too sometimes.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And because, well, especially because what's happening is those hormones are also neurotransmitters. So they have effect on the brain. Like we often think about them affecting like our sex organs or the breasts or other areas, but they really have an effect on the brain. So it can be a lot more difficult, especially during midlife, because when estrogen declines, you actually tend to get less dopamine bursts. And dopamine is like the happy was one of the happy hormones. So, we can have like struggle more with the emotions and like moodiness and anxiety and depression and sleeplessness, all because of those shifts in those hormones, unfortunately. So,
How would one increase the dopamine? Does exercise do it? Like, what will bring
yeah,
some of that back?
exercise does it. And actually, one of the interesting things is a lot of these hormones are also made in the gut. So serotonin, another happy hormone, 90% is made in the gut. So if your gut is unhealthy because of things that we're doing or things we're eating, that can really affect our mental health. So, unfortunately, and 80% of our immune system is made in our gut. And so, this can, add to a lot of different medical conditions from anxiety and depression to chronic disease and autoimmune diseases. So actually, and it's funny because Hippocrates in 440 BC said, "Let food be thy medicine." And I think we're just realizing that now. Like, I'm like, why so many years later are we realizing that there's actually healing properties to food? And so, but choosing foods mainly like whole foods. I always tell my patients that food should fall into four categories. They should have either walked, swam, grew, or flew at some point because there are no Twinkie trees, there's no free range Doritos and pasture raised, so but I also say, give yourself grace. Like 80% of the time, if you're eating healthy, then great. And 20% of the time, enjoy yourself.
Right.
But getting those healthy foods, but also focusing on probiotics, and that would be from fermented foods or actually taking probiotics, because they have found that this really important gut brain connection, and that there's actually bacteria that when it's in your gut can affect your thought process. Like yeast, for example, yeast, if you have an overgrowth of yeast in your gut, it will actually hijack your nervous system and make you get sugar cravings because of the fact that yeast likes to live on sugar. So it will actually make you have more sugar cravings.
Oh,
We do know that there's other bacteria that will do this. So sometimes what I wonder, especially in people that are binging, and like I said, I've been there too, is am I binging because I'm trying to is it an emotional thing, or are my bacteria off and I'm now and they're like hijacking my nervous system and now kind of controlling me. It is as crazy as I think the in science, one of the most interesting examples of bacteria that does this is actually in babies. They found that they're in babies that are colicky, that cry a lot,
mhm.
that they have it's a certain type of bacteria, a bacillus bacteria, that they don't have enough of. So when that bacteria in their system starts to go too low, the babies get really, really, really cranky. And then what does a new parent do? When baby's like, I don't know why this baby's crying. Like, I changed it. It's okay, new diaper. No, oh, let me feed it. So it affects the behavior of the parent who now feeds the baby. That type of bacteria now gets enough nutrients, and when that bacterial level, that Bacillus infidus is the actually bacteria, when it reaches a certain level, it doesn't trigger that nervous system to make the baby irritable anymore.
Wow.
So the bacteria is doing it to try to survive, but it's not only affecting the behavior of the child, but the behavior of another person. And the science of this microbiome is incredibly fascinating, where they're really finding out that these bacteria can be affecting our thoughts and behaviors too.
Wow.
So, and then even there's been studies like when it comes to obesity, and I hate to use the word obesity, but in medical terms, we use it medically. I know, unfortunately, in layman's term, it comes off across as a judgment word, but it's not. But I'm gonna say, they did a study where they took twins, where one twin was thin and one twin was obese, and they took the microbiome from those human twins and they fed it to normal weighted mice. And the mouse that got the obese twins microbiome, that mouse became fat, and the other mouse stayed thin. And so then what they did was they took the mice and they switched their microbiomes. So they took the obese mouse, fed it the thin twins microbiome, and that obese mouse now became thin. The thin mouse became obese. So they do know that there's also a role of these bacteria that can be present, that can affect not only metabolism but whether you hold on to weight too. So it's really the whole field of like microbiome medicine is getting really interesting. Unfortunately, we're not at the point yet. We'd love to, like, as a doctor, I go, okay, well, if we know this, how about we just give those probiotics to the people? We know which ones are doing the job, so let's just give it to those and help people. And we're not at that. The science doesn't really match up with that quite yet. I think maybe in the future we're going to probably look at different types of probiotics, taking them for, maybe one for mental health, one for body composition and metabolism, one for, inflammation, but they haven't exactly gotten that completely figured out yet. But they do know that the more diverse your gut health is, so the more different types of bacteria you have in the gut, the healthier you are. And we do that by eating whole foods, grains, fermented foods, like kombucha, kimchi. If you can tolerate dairy, then yogurt and kefir. And there's so many different other ones out there. And also fiber. And so fiber is what the healthy bacteria likes to live on. So doing all that can actually really help, not only with body composition, but also with mental health. So,
Which is
yeah,
important. Um,
yeah.
my mother used to always say to me, she says, if you're craving something, it's because of something. So she had this book, and I know it might sound crazy, but I loved it. So one time I was in university and I was just craving onions and cooked onions. So I looked up her book and it said that onions tend to reduce stress. So what you're talking about, there's foods, and I believe it, that if you crave a food, like I was craving peanut butter, I'm not a big peanut butter fan. Well, I was during that period, I was craving it. But it's almost as if, and I let my body, I feed my body whatever it's telling me that it craves. So like if it's tuna, it was whatever. And I think my mother's right. I may be wrong, but when your body is craving something, it's because it's deficient in something, and it's saying, and it's specific. It's not like, hey, yeah, I want to get a Twinkie. No, no, no. It's actually specific to healthy foods, right? Like, somebody
Yeah.
say peanut butter. I get the natural peanut butter, and so it's
I know when I was menstruating, when I used to get my period, I always craved ground beef. And I realized because a lot of times our blood levels go low when we're
yeah,
menstruating, and so our iron levels go low. So sometimes people will crave
yeah,
meats during that time.
yeah.
I had a friend of mine who was vegetarian, and during her pregnancy, she craved meat like there was no, she actually stopped being vegetarian. She was vegetarian her whole life, and during her pregnancy she started eating meat, and because she
Wow.
said she couldn't stop like craving it. And I'm like, that's interesting to know. So
Yeah, but I really do
yeah.
believe it. It's your body is signaling that there's something in it. And I loved, I don't know where my mom's book is anymore. I actually moved back in with her and she's 90 and I'm 63. So this is like years later, but I still remember that book. And every time I read whatever I was craving, it was significant, like potatoes. So that would be potassium, like the onions for some reason, apparently garlic, apparently reduce stress. But this is where it came from when you were saying about how food will help. I think there's a part in the Bible. It's been a long time, but there's a part in the Bible where
Yeah.
anything can be cured through like vegetables or on earth there is like the vegetation there is a cure for whatever you're going through. And that was written how many years ago? Like it's
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
I
It
wish I
is
had the verse,
really
but I
like the
remember
whole,
that all the time. I'm going, you know what? It's true. Like, I couldn't get pregnant. I took Femmend, and I was in the States at the time in Reno, and it was like all natural. It's called Femmend, and I took it, and like literally a month later, I was pregnant, and yet the doctors told me I couldn't get pregnant, and I was taking it to regulate my period because I wasn't regular. I wasn't taking it to get pregnant. I wasn't ready yet.
and
And I
then
know that
surprise,
that's
it worked
true.
so well.
But again, 3 years later, I wanted to get pregnant again because I never used birth control. And so I went back on that Femin and I got pregnant 2 months later. So there's something missing in my body, obviously, that this curtailed that and herbal teas. Yeah. So after my third, I
Yeah.
stopped taking any of that.
You're like, no more. It's also, I was thinking when we're talking about food, I have a mentor, and he has said something, when you get cravings, he said, stop and ask yourself three things. Do you want to eat that food for entertainment? Do you want to eat it for addiction? Or do you want to eat it for nourishment? And I have to say, there's been times when I've gone to like binge and I'm like, and I've run those three things through my mind. Okay, entertainment, addiction, or nourishment. And I'm going, yeah, you know what? Those Oreo cookies are really not gonna nourish me. So it's either because like I'm addicted to chocolate or I'm bored. So it's kind of stopped some of the binging that I've had some from time to time.
It actually does me even when I feel like, I mean, if I want chips, I'll have chips, but I know for sure that that's definitely entertainment because this is okay.
Yes.
So I do talk to myself because I do a lot of that. And I go, okay, so do you want a healthy granola bar, which will nourish you, or do you want your chips? And I'll say to myself, I want my chips. I want my chips. So can I have my chips, right? But I'm aware of my choice, right? Um,
Yeah.
and it's not bad to do that. I mean, a little bag of chips versus a little Oreo cookie, it's not going to hurt for the odd time. But I like that though, because if you're tired though, I think that that's a bigger thing to look at. Because if you're tired, you're going to eat
Yeah.
more of it. I think personally, I eat more
Oh
when,
yeah, definitely. Because you have less resistance to say no. So you're like,
yeah,
so
get me
yeah,
out of the way.
definitely.
Yeah.
It's interesting now too what's happening in the world just a general of weight loss with some of these medications, and I'm not exactly sure where we're going with some of these GLP-1s medications. I mean, some people they're helping out tremendously. I've seen some bad things happen with them. But I think one of the areas that they're looking into it, and it hasn't officially, there's some talk about it in the medical community. I don't know if we're officially there yet either, is microdosing some of these medicines, not for weight loss, but they found that those medications have effect on the brain. So the food talk that people get in their heads, especially anyone with the eating disorder, it can help quiet those food urges and thoughts, and just in like micro doses as opposed in that not, not necessarily affect the whole digestion too. But it's something that's being talked about. I don't know where we are with that yet, but it's just it's an interesting thing to think about. So, yeah.
Definitely. It's interesting too, because I know that they talk about like hereditary, and there's parts of the brain that they've done some studies on that would make someone more susceptible to becoming bulimic or whatever. And it was interesting. And so growing up, my mother was like really upset when she found out that I was bulimic, and it's stop it or get out of the house type of thing. But back then there wasn't
Oh gosh.
the information
Yeah.
or anything. And then, now we talk about it, and she goes, my sister was bulimic. She goes, I didn't know what bulimia was, but her older sister, um, after a meal would go to the bathroom and throw up. And so my mother's 90, her sister would have been 96. So let's put it going back that far. But there was nothing,
Yeah.
no one talking. So when we think that this whole eating disorder thing started in the 80s, like it's perceived to have,
Yeah.
it it didn't. It just was not talked about,
Yeah.
you know.
I agree. I
So
agree.
and then it was labeled, and so now we know what it is, right? But no, and no one was looking for it back then. No one would have even questioned, like, what are you doing it because of your body? They didn't talk about the body be like Twiggy was a big thing about people starting to have, getting too skinny and stuff like that. I get that. That was in the 70s or late 60s, whatever. But before that, there were body dysmorphias. There were
Oh
women,
gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And of
And I
course, I
even
mean,
looked
because
up on,
every culture has had what they consider the ideal body type, and so there's always been like pressure to fit into that.
yeah. And I even looked it up, which was interesting. White Christmas. I always loved White Christmas and watching, but this is like the one, I can't remember her name, but her waist is like, I think I could put an elastic band around it. So I looked her up, and apparently she struggled with anorexia.
Oh my
And yet,
goodness.
again, back then, nothing's talked about. So I just find it's great to have people like you out here talking about things like this and about menopause and andropause. And I love this idea of, something that could put in the brain that will, reduce the desire for turning to food for anxiety or
Yes.
whatever we do it for. So
Yeah,
fascinating,
yeah.
more fascinating.
There's actually some natural supplements that they're looking at that can do it, but they can cause some GI upset. So some people like them, some people don't, but they're hops extract based. Which, interesting enough, hops extract also helps to curb menopause symptoms. So it does a little bit of both. They're looking at it as this like natural, like GLP-1, like herbal GLP-1. But I say with people if they're doing stuff like that, make sure it's healthy for them with their practitioners. But that's something that's kind of becoming big right now too. And it's just, and I think really where it will finally end up is we'll figure out this whole microbiome, and I think we'll be able to do it and control things more with healthy bacteria in the
That's
future.
That's very cool. And it's nice. And it's nice when you're hearing about something that's going to be, it's healthy. Like it's
Yeah.
natural. I mean, there's so many things out there that they're, oh, surely scams and stuff like that. I mean, you're scrolling through Facebook and you're going, yeah, and they're targeting midlife people too.
Uh,
Yeah.
right now, menopause is having its moment, which is good and bad because I'm happy that we're talking about it because you were talking earlier when you said like you're going through these body changes at puberty, but at puberty we're all talking about it. So everybody
Yeah,
kind of knows what to expect. Nobody knows what to expect by the time you get to menopause and things are happening and you're like, what the hell is going on? And so I'm glad we're talking about it, but the flip side of that is marketers are realizing that menopause sells. So now as consumers, we have to be very discerning about are these products really good for me in my midlife, or are they just a scam because they took a product that has always existed and just slapped the word menopause on it and now they're trying to sell it to me because they realize not only are there a lot of women that are in that midlife, and beyond stage of life, but these are women who probably have had like careers or have their money. They're not just starting off. So they realize they can spend more money. So that's why now there's a huge, basically, menopause market out there. So it makes it a little harder too, I think, for myself, who's like trying to talk about legitimate things to like get my message through, because it does become very overwhelming and you're like kind of almost drowning in a sea of menopause and you're like, wait, I don't know, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to take? Does this work? Does this not? So yeah, it does become very, very confusing.
And that's why I'm bringing that up, because this is great, because I know, you're trying to go the right way. Anything on Facebook, even like creams. Oh, you have this, put this cream on and look, it's gone. And I'm going, really, seriously? Like, and on your face, like, here I am, like, I'm wrinkled, I'm 63. Sorry, I'm on a podcast. I don't care. It's like,
Yeah.
well, as a previous
And that's actually
person, I love, sorry, my previous guest, I love it. It's like body neutrality and it's like facial neutrality. It's like anything neutrality. I'm fine. But if it's going to make, things better with these, what did you call it? Oh, I have the note here somewhere.
which like the
Probiotics, what they're doing with
probiotics.
probiotics.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if that can make us, it's not going to get rid of my wrinkles. It's not going to get rid of my line, my fat. It's not. But if it makes me healthier, to me, that's the greatest thing, because that's what we were talking about too, is body gratitude and being healthy
Yes.
and being grateful. I don't know, because I told you I was very irregular.
Yeah.
So maybe once a year sometimes. So I never even knew if I went through menopause. And, my doctor is going, when did you go through menopause? I have no idea. I don't know.
Just one day it stopped.
Did you get hot flashes? Yes, but I don't know. Sometimes not. I didn't just like, so I never, I don't know when I went through it, but I do know emotions change and definitely you were talking about, even sexual, desires and stuff like that. That's going to change everything too. Um, but um, yeah, it's to me, I'm also grateful that I'm here who do that would make it this long. It's like, with my 30 years of
I think
yeah, I'm grateful to be here still. Like,
And
really.
I think that there's also right now, which is really nice, this like body positivity that we're seeing, because really, like, if you could have two people, one who looks like a supermodel but is not confident, and you could have somebody that doesn't look like a supermodel, doesn't fit that like ideal body, but is super confident, and that confidence is going to come across, and both of them walk in the room, the people are going to notice the confident person, because that confidence is so much more sexy than having the perfect body. And honestly, nobody ever has the perfect body. Even the models don't have it, like, and they're miserable,
Yeah.
So I think it really comes in getting to a point where you're just happy with yourself and being, like you said, grateful with yourself. I mean, I remember, years ago, I made a comment about like, oh, my bikini days are over. I'm not going to get into a bikini ever again. I'm over the age of 50. And then all of a sudden, then last summer, I was like, what the hell? Who said that? I'm wearing a bikini, and if nobody likes the way I look, then guess what? That's their fault, not mine. I'm like, I'm wearing it. I'm going to be confident in it. I'm going to feel sexy in it. And if people are disgusted or look away, like, you know what, then that's their problem. But, and I found the scariest thing was when I went on a public beach in a bikini, and I thought, oh my God, I had this image that people were gonna like faint and like be like so in shock, like, oh my God, I'm blinded by like the grotesqueness or something. And nobody even batted an eye. Nobody fainted. Nobody was like pointing and screaming at me like, oh my God, cover up. Like, nothing happened. And I was like, huh, you know what? The world didn't end. All right, this is what I'm doing,
So it
So
was like we went on a cruise. So we had lived in Turkey when I was younger, 7 till 11. My dad was transferred there. Then Dad decided 12 years ago that he wanted to go back with all the kids and everything. And Mom goes, she goes, we're on the cruise, and Mom goes, I'm not wearing a bathing suit. I'm not wearing a bathing suit. And I go, Mom, put on a bathing suit. So we go out there. There's a whole bunch of like retired people as well, and they're all in bathing suits, bikinis, like. like, she goes, "Oh, I feel good."
Yeah, exactly.
I
Exactly.
know. You look good, but
Yeah.
we put so much emphasis on like on that stuff. But I don't know. I I could probably wear a bikini. I've always been a one piece person though, pretty well. Like I've worn them at some point, but I'm always comfortable in more one piece. You know, it's like if we're gonna
It's probably better from
go.
not exposing your skin to too much sun anyway. So really, we look at it like that way. It's really good for prevent skin cancer. We don't need to expose everything to the sun. So,
Oh, you're funny. You're great. All right,
yeah,
so
yeah.
with this, I would really love for you to share with my listeners where they can find you.
Sure, I am all over social media. So unfortunately, I did not was not smart enough to realize to name myself the same on every platform. So, but if you look up Dr. Betsy Greenleaf, Betsy, and Greenleaf, you'll find me in one form or the other. Sometimes Dr. B Greenleaf, sometimes Dr. Betsy Greenleaf. So I'm on any platform that most likely that you're on. And if not, let me know and I'll get on that platform. The other thing is you can find me at the pauseinstitute.com. So that's pause like menopause, Pause, and then institute.com. That's my medical practice. And there is a free quiz that you can take, like a free hormone quiz. Just kind of gives you an idea where you are with your hormones if you go to that website. Lastly, I have a site that I sell pelvic health products. It's called the Pelvic Floor Store. So pelvicfloorstore.com. And I will get you a code for 10% off. The code will be Bleep Bulimia. And you can get 10% off at that using that code at that store. So yeah, thank you so much for having me and letting me tell you where to find more.
Wow. If I can just ask you quickly though, before we go, because you got the
Yeah.
pelvic for store, can you tell us a little bit more what we're going to be finding on that pelvic site?
Sure. Yeah. So what happened was I would recommend products to my patients. And at the time, many of these things weren't on Amazon, and some of them still are not on Amazon. So they were hard to find. So people would have to go to one website or the other. So one day, one of my patients says, why couldn't this all be all in one place? And that was probably back in 2016, 2018-ish, I think. And I went, huh, that's a good idea. And I did not know how to make a website, and I didn't even know that you could actually hire somebody to do this. So I set out and watched a whole bunch of YouTube videos. It took me about 4 months to build the website, which I now know I probably could have hired somebody that could have done it in a day, but at the time I didn't know. So I started basically curating products that I recommend. So anything from like supplements from like midlife or hot flashes or supplements to help bladder control to we have healthy lubricants because a lot of the lubricants that are on the market aren't pH balanced for the vagina and they can actually increase your risk of recurrent urinary tract infections and vaginal infections. So I have healthy lubricants on there. We also have some of more of the risque products, which are intimate devices that you can use for pelvic health and whether it's alone or with a partner. And I'm starting to put some products for men's health on there. We have a lot of like Kegel exercisers too on there because keeping your muscles well toned in the pelvis is just as important as the rest of your body. So because we don't often think about those muscles until all of a sudden maybe we're having problems holding in urine or stool or gas. So it's going to be important to do the Kegels. And we got a couple different companies, any ones that work with little apps where they gamified them, which is kind of fun to ones that have this little like a lighted handpiece where every time you do your Kegel, a little light kind of goes on. So yeah, so a whole range of products on there.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm glad that
Yeah.
I asked you what's on there because people will be sitting there going, I don't know what that is, and they're not going to be curious. Now they will
And
be.
I know you're located in Canada, and I have to say, like, for the most part, I've been able to ship in Canada, but it's been like hit or miss lately. Like, well, all of a sudden, you guys have people striking, and then things can't get in there, or then
Oh, I
there's
know.
tariffs, and then there's not tariffs. So I will ship, but sometimes you might have to Canada. But sometimes you have to gotta be a little patient if it's outside of the United States. So
No
yeah.
problem. Well, I'll tell you, thank you so much. Thanks for the laughs. Thank you for the wonderful information. Very, very interesting. So happy to be able to discuss this. Funny enough, I've been sort of looking for somebody to discuss something about midlife. I mean, we do, but literally, specifically to midlife. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right, thank you. I'm so grateful. I had a great conversation.
I did too. Thank you. Take care. Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit me at bleepbulimia.com.